The landing bay stank of recycled air and alien sweat. Ray Booker walked down the ramp carrying a reinforced metal crate that hummed with angry, scratching sounds. Every few seconds, something inside hit the walls hard enough to make the whole container shake. Three aliens watched him approach. The tall one with blue skin and too many fingers stepped forward. His translator crackled before words came out. "You are the human contractor." "That's right." Ray set the crate down carefully. "Ray Booker, got your message about the jungle problem." The blue alien looked at the crate, then at Ray, then back at the crate. "We specified this job requires extreme biological resilience. The Verdice 9 jungle has killed 17 expeditions. Our best warriors. Our strongest robots. Everything dies in there. Read the file," Ray said. A shorter alien with gray skin and black eyes tapped a data pad. "It says you are an animal handler. From Earth. Wildlife specialist," Ray corrected. "Worked in places your species won't go near." The third alien, covered in green scales, made a hissing sound that the translator turned into laughter. "Human arrogance. Your world is barely class 3 danger. Verdice 9 is category 5 death world. The plants eat metal. The air carries 12 different toxins. Creatures there hunt in packs and dissolve prey with acid." Ray shrugged. "Sounds rough." "Rough." The blue alien's skin darkened. "We lost a team of Krell shock troops last month. Each one weighed 400 pounds of muscle and armor plating. The jungle sent back pieces." "Did you bring weapons?" the gray one asked. "Battle suits? Shield generators?" "Brought something better." Ray kicked the crate lightly. The scratching stopped. Then something hit the inside so hard the whole container jumped 6 inches off the floor. All 3 aliens stepped back. "What is in there?" the scaled one demanded. Ray pulled out a data pad and brought up the contract. "Says here you'll pay 200,000 credits to map a safe route through the jungle to the luminal or deposits. Says you'll pay another 300,000 if I bring back samples." "That's still good." The blue alien made a gesture that might have been a nod. "If you succeed, but you will not. No one does. Then you got nothing to lose letting me try." Ray thumbed the contract signature panel. "I'll need landing coordinates and atmospheric data." The gray alien sent files to his pad. "You understand this is likely suicide?" "I've heard that before." Ray picked up the crate. Something inside growled low and mean. "Which bay for planetary descent?" "Bay 7, the blue alien said. "But you have not answered. What weapon did you bring?" Ray smiled. "Not a weapon. A partner." He carried the crate toward Bay 7. Behind him, the aliens talked in their own languages, words the translator didn't bother with. Ray had heard doubt plenty of times before. Didn't matter what language it came in. Bay 7 held a small descent pod built for cargo runs. Ray loaded the crate and strapped it down with heavy chains. Through the reinforced view panel, he could see Verdice 9 below. The whole planet looked green and angry, covered in jungle so thick it seemed to move like an ocean. That a female alien appeared in the bay doorway. She was smaller than the others, with copper-colored skin and large eyes that actually looked curious instead of dismissive. "I am Prella," she said. "I study Earth biology. I saw your import manifest." "Yeah, you brought a honey badger." Ray grinned. "So you know, I know they are considered extremely aggressive, resistant to venom, thick skin, fearless to the point of stupidity." Prella moved closer. "I also know they are small, maybe 30 pounds. How does a small Earth predator survive where armored warriors fail?" "Because warriors think about survival," Ray said. "Boss doesn't think. She just fights." "Boss." Ray tapped the crate. "That's her name. Found her in a reserve back home after she'd fought off a pack of hyenas and lived through 3 snake bites that should have killed her. She's mean, tough, and doesn't know when to quit." Prella's eyes went wide. "You're trusting your life to an animal?" "Every day." Ray climbed into the pod. "Your people tried strength, tried technology, tried intelligence. None of it worked because the jungle eats all that. So I'm bringing something it hasn't seen before, which is pure spite." Ray sealed the pod door. Through the window, he saw Prella step back as the launch sequence began. The pod dropped from a bay and fell toward the green hell below. Inside the crate, Boss hit the walls again, ready for whatever came next. Ray checked his gear one last time. Machete, medical kit, breather mask, camera drones. The basics that had kept him alive on a dozen death worlds. The pod hit atmosphere and started shaking. Through the window, the jungle rushed up to meet them. From orbit, it looked like a sea. Up close, Ray could see individual trees the size of buildings, vines thick as cables, and clearings that looked like open mouths waiting to swallow anything that landed. The pod's computer picked a landing zone and fired retro thrusters. They hit ground hard enough to rattle Ray's teeth. Steam hissed as the door unlocked and swung open. Humid air rolled in, thick and hot, and smelling like rotting plants mixed with something sweet that probably meant poison. Sounds came from every direction. Buzzing, clicking, rustling, and deeper noises that might have been animals or might have been the jungle itself breathing. Ray unsealed the crate. Boss exploded out like a missile. She was compact and low to the ground, covered in coarse gray and black fur. Scars marked her face and shoulders from old fights. She hit the jungle floor running, and within seconds, she had her teeth in a vine that had started creeping toward the pod. The vine thrashed. Boss bit harder, and it shook her head like she was breaking a snake's neck. The vine went limp. She dropped it and immediately started sniffing around, looking for the next threat. Ray stepped out with his machete ready. Day 1 starts now. Boss found the first real threat 20 minutes into the jungle. Ray was cutting through a tangle of blue vines when she started making a sound he recognized. A low churning growl that meant she'd spotted something worth killing did a creature the size of a large dog emerge from the undergrowth. 6 legs, covered in spikes, with mandibles that dripped something that sizzled when it hit the ground. The file Ray had read called them spine hunters, pack predators that had torn apart the last expedition's lead scout in under a minute. Boss charged before Ray could even raise his machete. The spine hunter tried its intimidation display, raising its front legs and spreading its mandibles wide. Worked great on species that understood fear. Boss hit it low and hard, teeth finding the soft joint where leg met body. The creature shrieked and tried to shake her off. She held on and bit deeper point. 2 more spine hunters rushed out of the trees. Ray moved to help, but Boss was already twisting away from the first one and launching herself at the second. She was too fast and too low for their attacks to land cleanly. Every time they tried to bite or sting, she was already somewhere else, ripping at their legs and underbelly. The fight lasted maybe 3 minutes. When it ended, all 3 spine hunters were bleeding and retreating back into the jungle. Boss had a cut along her shoulder that would have sent most creatures into shock. She licked it once and went back to exploring. Ray pulled out his medical kit and caught up to her. "Hold still," she growled, but let him clean the wound and spray it with antiseptic. Her skin was thick enough that the cut looked worse than it was. Ray had seen her take worse back on Earth and walk it off. "Good girl," he said, though calling Boss good was always generous. His comm unit crackled. Prella's voice came through. "We saw that through your camera feed." She attacked without hesitation. "That's what she does," Ray said. "The spine hunters are apex pack predators. They coordinate attacks. Use venom." Prella sounded amazed. "She should be dead. They tried venom on her back home. Cobra, rattlesnake, black mamba. She got sick for a day, then bit the handler who tried to cage her during recovery." Ray watched Boss dig into the soft earth, probably tracking some smell. Her metabolism burns through most toxins. The ones it doesn't, she just ignores until they wear off. "Impossible." "You keep using that word," Ray said. "Boss doesn't know what it means." They pushed deeper into the jungle. Ray marked their path with chemical tags his drones could track. Boss ranged ahead, checking every shadow and attacking anything that moved wrong. She fought plants that tried to grab her. She dug up burrowing creatures and killed them. She even tried to fight Ray's drone until he called her off. The jungle was everything the reports promised. Toxic air that burned the lungs. Plants that moved like animals. Insects the size of fists that traveled in swarms. Every step was a new danger. Boss treated every danger the same way. She bit it up the 3rd day. Ray started noticing a pattern. The jungle's creatures relied on fear and surprise. They were ambush predators, poison users, pack hunters who counted on their prey panicking or running. Boss never panicked, never ran. She met every threat head-on with teeth and claws and an attitude that said she was the scariest thing in any jungle. And slowly, the jungle started to believe it. Ray watched through his binoculars as Boss walked past a camouflage predator that should have attacked. The creature watched her go by without moving. Another time, a whole swarm of acid-spitting flies changed direction to avoid her. "They are learning to avoid her," Prella said over the comm. "The jungle's ecosystem is adapting to her presence." "Fear's a two-way street," Ray said. "These things never met something that hits back harder." On the fifth day, they found the first real evidence of the luminal ore. Ray's scanner picked up traces in the soil. Boss had led them to a game trail that wound between massive trees whose bark glowed faintly in the dim light. "You are one-third of the way to the main deposits," Prella reported. "But the next section is worse. The files show the area is home to something we call the Verdice Reaper. It killed an entire military squad." Ray checked his supplies. Food was good. Water filters were holding. Medical supplies were down because Boss kept finding new things to fight, but she was healing fast. "What's this Reaper thing?" "Large, armored, extremely territorial. It uses a combination of toxic breath and physical strength. The squad's armor was found melted and crushed." "Great." Ray looked at Boss, who was currently trying to dig up a tree root for no clear reason, except she felt like it. "Hear that, Boss? Something big and mean up ahead." Boss stopped digging and looked at him. Her eyes were dark and flat, the look of something that had never backed down from a fight in her life. Ray smiled. "Yeah, that's what I thought." They camped that night in a clearing Ray had secured. He set up motion sensors while Boss patrolled the perimeter, marking it like she owned the place. She probably thought she did. Ray heated a ration pack and tossed Boss some of the dried meat. She caught it in midair and swallowed it in 2 bites. Then she curled up next to his pack, close enough to protect her territory, but far enough to bolt into action if something threatened them. "Ray," Prella's voice was quiet over the comm. "The other scientists want to know how you trained her." "Didn't," Ray said. "You can't train a honey badger. You can only point them at problems and get out of the way. But she listens to you. Sometimes, when she feels like it. Mostly she just tolerates me because I feed her and don't try to control her." Ray watched Boss's ears twitch at some sound he couldn't hear. "That's the secret everyone misses. You don't train Earth's tough animals. You partner with them. Respect what they are." "And what is she?" Ray thought about all the times Boss had saved his life by being exactly what she was. Mean, fearless, and too stubborn to know when she was beaten. "She's the baddest thing on 4 legs, he said finally. "And tomorrow, she's going to prove it." Boss yawned, showing all her teeth, then went to sleep. In the distance, something roared. The sound echoed through the jungle, deep and threatening that Boss's ear twitched once. Then she went back to snoring. Ray checked his tranquilizer rifle and settled in for watch. Tomorrow they'd meet the Reaper. He almost felt sorry for it. The clearing appeared suddenly, like the jungle had been hiding it on purpose. Ray pushed through a wall of ferns and found himself staring at open ground the size of a football field. The earth sparkled with veins of luminal or running through exposed rock. This was it, the deposit the mining companies would kill for. Boss trotted into the clearing and immediately froze. Her whole body went rigid, nose in the air, reading scents Ray couldn't detect. Then she growled. The Verdice Reaper rose from the far side of the clearing like a mountain coming to life. It stood on 4 massive legs, each one thick as a tree trunk. Armored plates covered its back and sides, gray-green and scarred from years of fighting. Its head was broad and flat with eyes that glowed yellow in the jungle shadows. When it opened its mouth, Ray saw teeth designed for crushing and a throat that bubbled with something caustic. The thing was at least 12 feet tall and probably weighed 2 tons. "Ray, retreat immediately." Prella's voice was sharp in his ear. That creature killed 20 trained soldiers. Ray was already loading his tranquilizer rifle. How many darts did it take before? They never got a chance to use them. It moved too fast. The Reaper took a step forward and released a roar that shook leaves from the trees. Ray felt it in his chest, a sound designed to make prey freeze in terror. Boss answered with her own sound, a snarling scream that came from deep in her throat. Then she charged. No, 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 Prella was saying. She cannot win this. She is too small. Boss had covered half the distance before the Reaper seemed to realize something the size of a backpack was actually attacking it. The creature's head swung down, and it spat a stream of greenish liquid that hit the ground where Boss had been a second earlier. The earth sizzled and smoked. Boss dodged left, then right, moving like she was following some pattern only she understood. The Reaper tried to track her, but she was too fast and too low. She reached its front leg and did what honey badgers do best. She bit. Her teeth found the gap where armor plate met leg joint. The Reaper screamed and kicked, but Boss held on like a vice. Ray could see her whole body shaking with the effort of keeping her grip as the creature tried to shake her loose. Ray fired his first tranquilizer dart. It hit the Reaper's shoulder and sank in deep. The creature barely noticed. The Reaper turned, and Ray got a good look at its breath weapon. The throat sac pulsed, and more acid sprayed out, covering the ground in smoking puddles. Boss let go and rolled clear, then immediately went for the other front leg. She is targeting the joints, Prella said, wonder replacing fear in her voice. She knows where it is vulnerable. She's fought bigger things than her whole life, Ray said, firing another dart. She knows how to hunt up. The battle turned into a brutal dance. The Reaper would attack with acid or try to crush Boss with its massive feet. Boss would dodge, strike at a weak point, and retreat before the counterattack landed. She was bleeding from a dozen small cuts where armor edges had caught her, but she never slowed down. Ray kept firing darts, aiming for soft spots in the armor. The tranquilizer was designed for creatures this size, but it needed time to work. Time Boss was buying with every bite and dodge. The Reaper's movements started to slow. Not much, but enough that Ray noticed. One of its legs was bleeding badly where Boss had torn through the joint protection. Every time it put weight on that leg, it stumbled slightly. Boss noticed too. She focused all her attacks on that one leg, darting in and out like a shark going after wounded prey. The toxin is working, Prella said, but it will take at least 10 more minutes to fully affect its nervous system. 10 minutes was a lifetime in a fight like this. Ray loaded his last 3 darts and moved to a better angle. Boss was tiring too. He could see it in the way she hesitated for just a split second before each attack, calculating if she had the energy to dodge the counter. The Reaper swung its head down fast, trying to catch Boss in its jaws. She jumped back, but not quite far enough. The teeth scraped along her side and sent her tumbling across the clearing. Ray's heart stopped as Boss rolled to a stop and didn't get up immediately. The Reaper advanced, moving slowly now, but still deadly. It drew in a breath, throat sac expanding for a final acid attack that would end the fight. Boss stood up. She was bleeding from the new wound. Her fur was matted with dirt and blood. One of her legs shook slightly, but she stood up and faced the Reaper with the same flat, fearless eyes she'd had since the start. Then she charged again. The Reaper hesitated, just for a moment, but Ray saw it. The creature had fought countless prey animals. Everything it killed had tried to run eventually. Everything had shown fear. Boss didn't run. Boss didn't fear. Ray fired his last darts rapid fire, all 3 hitting center mass. Boss hit the damaged leg one more time, and this time something gave way with a wet tearing sound. The Reaper toppled sideways, crashing down hard enough to shake the ground. To try to rise, but the combination of damage and tranquilizer had finally won out. The creature's movements became sluggish, then stopped altogether except for labored breathing. Boss stood over its head, teeth bared, daring it to move. The Reaper closed its eyes and went still. Ray ran to Boss and scooped her up. She squirmed in protest, still ready to fight, but he held her tight and started checking her wounds. The side bite was bad, but not fatal. The cuts were shallow. She'd be sore for days, but she'd live. Impossible près la whispered. She defeated the apex predator. You all keep saying that word, Ray said, spraying antiseptic on Boss's wounds while she grumbled at him. Maybe start believing what you see instead of what you think is possible. On the orbital station, Ray knew they were watching through his camera. Let them watch. Let them see what Earth's evolution had created. Not the biggest predator, not the smartest, just the one too mean and stubborn to quit. Boss finally settled down and licked Ray's hand, which was her version of saying thanks. Then she jumped down and walked back to the ore deposits, already looking for the next threat. Ray pulled out his scanner and started mapping the clearing. The mining teams could use this route now. Boss had opened the door. She'd done the impossible, just another day's work. 3 weeks after leaving Verdice 9, Ray sat in a rented room on a space station, drinking something that tasted like coffee, but wasn't. Boss was tearing apart a cushion in the corner, killing it slowly because she was bored. His comm unit had been buzzing nonstop for hours. Another job offer. The 15th today, he ignored it and pulled up the news feed instead. His face stared back at him from a dozen headlines. Human and Earth creature conquer Death World. On est badge defeats impossible jungle. New era in extreme environment operations. The video footage showed Boss fighting the Reaper. Someone had edited it with dramatic music. Boss probably would have hated it if she understood what music was. A message notification popped up from Prella. Ray opened it. The consortium wants to hire you permanently. Director-level position. They are offering serious money. Please consider it. Ray deleted the message and finished his terrible coffee. Director meant meetings and reports, and people asking him to explain things they should already understand. He tried the management path once back on Earth. Lasted 3 months before he punched his supervisor and got blacklisted from the Wildlife Service. The door chimed. Boss stopped destroying the cushion and growled at it. It's open, Ray called. Prella entered, followed by 2 aliens Ray didn't recognize. One was tall and thin with silver skin. The other was built like a tank, all muscle and armor plating. This is Administrator Kelvin. Prella indicated the silver one. And Commander Roth of the Exploration Corps. Ray didn't stand up. If this is about the director job, the answer's no. Kelvin's translator made his voice sound smooth and corporate. We understand you prefer field work. We have something else in mind. The commander stepped forward and placed a hollow projector on the table. It displayed a planet that looked like a gray marble covered in cracks. Ash 7. Former mining colony abandoned 60 years ago after a reactor breach. The planet's surface is saturated with radiation. Sounds unhealthy, Ray said. Previous surveys detected rare element deposits worth billions. But every team we send dies within hours from exposure. Kelvin pulled up statistics. We have tried shielded suits, robotic drones, even genetically modified workers. All failed. Ray looked at Boss, who had gone back to murdering the cushion. And you think she can survive radiation? We think you can find a way, Prellis said quietly. Like you did on Verdice 9, by using Earth biology in ways we never considered. Commander Roth expanded the hollow image. The Exploration Corps has 1,000 worlds we have written off as impossible. Ash 7 is just one. If you succeed there, it proves your methods work on more than just jungle planets. What's the pay? Kelvin named a figure that was double what Verdice 9 had paid. Ray kept his face neutral, but inside he was calculating. That kind of money would fund years of research into protective gear for Boss, better medical equipment, maybe even a real ship instead of renting passage everywhere. I'll need to bring additional specimens, Ray said. Tardigrades, cockroaches, maybe some extremophile bacteria samples. All 3 aliens looked confused. Microscopic Earth organisms, Prella explained to them. They survive extreme conditions. Why? Commander Roth asked. Because Boss is tough, but radiation's different than teeth and claws. I need to test the environment with things built to survive it. Ray stood up and grabbed his go bag. And I'll need Prella as my liaison again. She actually reads the files I send. Prella's skin flushed a darker copper. I would be honored. Kelvin nodded. Agreed. When can you depart? Ray looked at Boss, who had finished with the cushion and was now eyeing Kelvin's briefcase like it might need killing. How's tomorrow? The trip to Ash 7 took 4 days on a consortium fast ship. Ray spent the time studying radiation data and preparing his specimens. The tardigrades were stored in suspended animation. The cockroaches were very much awake and tried to escape their container every few hours. Boss tried to eat both. Prella worked with Ray to design a monitoring harness for Boss that would track radiation exposure without restricting her movement. They also modified his own suit with better shielding. The radiation levels are inconsistent, Prella explained, showing him a map of the planet. Some areas are worse than others. We believe the reactor breach created hot zones that shift based on underground water flow. So we mapped the safe zones and work around the hot ones, Ray said. There may be no safe zones. Then we find the least deadly ones. Ray checked the harness fit on Boss, who immediately tried to bite it off. She survived worse odds. Commander Roth appeared on the view screen from a bridge. We are approaching Ash 7. Surface landing in 30 minutes. Ray could see the planet through the observation window. It looked dead. No clouds, no green, just gray rock and darker gray craters. Previous expedition equipment littered the surface like a junkyard. Cheerful place, Ray muttered. They landed in the same zone where the last expedition had set up base camp. The ship's sensors screamed warnings about radiation levels. Ray sealed his suit and opened Boss's crate. She bounded out and immediately started sniffing the ship's interior, looking for threats. Finding none, she turned her attention to the airlock door, ready for whatever was outside. Harness is reading normal background radiation, Prella said. But once you exit the ship, levels will increase dramatically. Ray opened the airlock. The outside air came and filtered through his suit, metallic and sharp. Boss went out first, hitting the gray soil and immediately starting to explore. The landscape was dead in a way Verdice 9 never was. No plants, no movement, just rocks and dust, and ruins of old buildings melted into strange shapes. The sky was pale and wrong, like someone had washed all the color out of it. Boss's harness started clicking faster. Radiation levels rising. She is absorbing zero point 0.3 rads per minute, Prella said. That will kill most species within an hour. Boss found a piece of twisted metal and tried to dig under it. Whatever she smelled there, she wanted it. Ray pulled out his tardigrade containers and placed them in different zones around the landing area. Each one had sensors that would report back on radiation levels and survival rates. The cockroaches went into separate boxes, scattered wider to test different exposure levels. You're using them as living sensors, Prella said. They're built for this. Tardigrades can survive in space. Cockroaches lived through nuclear tests back on Earth. Ray watched Boss wander toward a collapsed building. If they die, we know that zone's too hot. If they live, we can work there. Boss disappeared into the ruins. Ray's heart rate jumped. Boss, get back here. She didn't listen. She never did when she found something interesting. Ray ran after her, Prella shouting warnings about radiation spikes in his ear. He found Boss in what used to be a basement, digging at something in the corner. She'd uncovered a nest of creatures, things that looked like a cross between worms and centipedes, each one glowing faintly with bioluminescence. They scattered when Boss attacked, and she caught one in her mouth. Radiation-adapted life forms, Prella breathed. Boss just found native organisms we did not know existed. The creature Boss had caught wasn't fighting back. It seemed more confused than scared. Boss dropped it, and it crawled away quickly. Ray checked his scanner. This basement has lower radiation levels. Something about the building structure is providing partial shielding. Boss had already moved on to investigating the other corners, her curiosity overriding any sense of self-preservation she might have had, which wasn't much to begin with. Ray smiled inside his helmet. The planet wasn't dead. It was just different, and where there was life, there was a way forward. Prella, mark this location. We just found our base of operations. Boss barked once, proud of herself, then went back to hunting the glowing worms. 2 weeks on Ash 7 taught Ray that radiation poisoning was a much slower enemy than anything with teeth. Boss's harness readings climbed steadily each day despite Ray's careful route planning. The tardigrades were thriving in some zones and dying in others, giving him a map of relative safety. The cockroaches were doing what cockroaches always did, surviving everything and somehow multiplying. Boss had found a routine. She'd hunt the radiation-adapted worms each morning, eating a few and killing others just for sport. Then she'd follow Ray as he surveyed different areas, marking locations where the ore deposits were concentrated. Her exposure levels worried him, but she showed no symptoms yet. No hair loss, no lethargy, no bleeding. Just the same mean, stubborn boss who'd walked into the jungle 3 months ago. The calm crackled with Prella's voice. Ray, you need to see this data. He was standing in the ruins of what used to be the colony's main reactor building. The walls still hummed with residual energy, making his suit's alerts scream constantly. Boss was digging at something near a collapsed wall, ignoring the danger like she ignored everything else. What is it? The ore deposits you found. I ran the composition analysis. Prella paused. They are worth more than we estimated. Much more. This could fund the consortium's expansion for a decade. Ray looked around at the dead planet. Great. How many people died trying to get to it? 43. Across 7 expeditions. Boss barked at something she'd uncovered. Ray walked over and found her standing over a skeleton in a deteriorated hazmat suit. Probably from one of those 43. The corporations are already fighting over extraction rights, Prellick continued. They want you to map the entire deposit field within the month. Can't be done, Ray said. Boss's exposure is already at 60% of what I consider safe. They are offering triple pay. Ray knelt down and ran his gloved hand over Boss's back. She leaned into it for a moment before returning to her investigation of the skeleton. Money's no good if she's dead. Silence on the comm, then Prella spoke quietly. I told them you would say that. What did they say? That animals can be replaced. Ray's jaw clenched. Yeah, well, they can find another contractor. He was about to call Boss back to base camp when she started growling at the collapsed wall. Not her usual threat growl, but something deeper. A sound that meant she'd found something big and dangerous. The wall exploded outward, that a creature emerged that made the Verdice Reaper look small. It was massive, maybe 20 feet long, with a body that seemed to be made of living crystal that pulsed with internal light. 6 legs, each ending in claws that sparked with energy. Its head was mostly mouth, filled with teeth that looked like they could bite through the ship's hull. Radiation feeder. Prella's voice was shrill. The old reports mentioned them, but we thought they were extinct. The creature looked at Boss. Boss looked back, utterly unimpressed by the size difference. Then Boss did the stupidest, bravest thing Ray had ever seen. She attacked. Her teeth hit the creature's crystal skin and bounced off. The thing wasn't made of flesh and bone like the Reaper. It was something else, something that Earth's evolution had never prepared her for. The creature swung a claw and caught Boss across the ribs, sending her flying into a pile of rubble. She didn't get up. Ray's world narrowed to tunnel vision. He pulled out his rifle and fired, but bullets just sparked off the crystal hide. The creature turned toward him, mouth opening to reveal a glow building in its throat. Not acid like the Reaper. Something worse. Pure radiation concentrated into a weapon. Ray dove behind cover as energy washed over where he'd been standing. His suit's radiation counter went into emergency mode, numbers climbing so fast they blurred. He looked at Boss. She was moving slightly, trying to stand, but her legs weren't working right. The hit had done real damage. The creature advanced on her, probably seeing an easy meal. Ray made a choice. He ran out from cover, putting himself between Boss and the creature. His suit was already screaming about critical radiation exposure. Didn't matter. He raised his rifle and fired every round he had into the thing's mouth, the only part that looked vulnerable. The creature roared and the sound was like metal tearing. It reared back, energy building in its throat for another blast. Ray was out of bullets and out of time. Then Boss hit the creature from the side. She'd gotten up despite her injuries and launched herself at one of the legs, finding a joint where crystal plates met. Her teeth sank in, and this time, something gave. The creature screamed and stumbled. Ray pulled out the electromagnetic disruptor he'd brought for equipment testing. It wasn't a weapon, but he thumbed it to maximum output and threw it directly into the creature's open mouth. The thing's insides lit up like a star going nova. The crystal body conducted the electromagnetic pulse through its entire structure. It thrashed once, twice, then collapsed in a shower of breaking crystal. Ray ran to Boss and gathered her up. She was breathing hard and blood was coming from her mouth. Internal injuries. Bad ones. Prella. Emergency extraction now. We are already launching, she said. Hold on. Ray held Boss while his suit's alarms told him he was dying too. Radiation exposure beyond safe limits. Organ damage probable. Treatment required immediately. Boss looked up at him with those flat, dark eyes. For the first time since he'd met her, he saw something that might have been fear. Not of dying, of failing him. You didn't fail, he whispered. You never do. The ship appeared overhead and dropped extraction cables. Ray clipped them to his harness and held Boss tight as they were pulled up through the dead air of ash. 7. The medical bay was chaos. Prella and 2 medical staff worked on Boss, while another team stripped Ray's contaminated suit and started emergency radiation treatment. He tried to stay conscious, tried to keep eyes on Boss, but the drugs they pushed into his system pulled him under. He woke up 3 days later. His body felt like it had been microwaved from the inside. Every muscle ached, and his head pounded with pressure that made his vision blur. Prella sat in a chair beside his medical bed. Her eyes were red-rimmed. "Boss," Ray croaked. "Alive," Prella said. "Barely. The injuries were severe, and the radiation exposure was extreme. But she is stable now." Ray tried to sit up and failed. "I want to see her." "You cannot move yet. You absorb enough radiation to kill 3 humans. The doctors say you will recover, but it will take time. The job canceled. The corporations are angry, but Commander Roth told them you nearly died completing a mission they claimed was impossible. They are reassessing their approach to Death World operations." Ray closed his eyes. His whole body hurt, but knowing Boss was alive made it bearable. Good. Maybe they'll stop treating planets like they're just resources to exploit. "There's something else," Prellis said carefully. "During your recovery, news of what happened spread. Other humans have contacted the consortium. Wildlife specialists, environmental scientists, trainers. They want to offer their services. Let them. Galaxy's big enough for more crazy people with dangerous animals." Prella almost smiled. "One of them has a proposal. She works with octopi on Earth's ocean worlds. Wants to explore underwater environments aliens have abandoned." Ray thought about that. Different environment, different challenges, but the same basic truth. Earth's evolution had created survivors. Real survivors. Not just intelligent, but adaptable and tough, and too stubborn to quit when things got hard. "Tell her to go for it," Ray said. "But warn her the pay's good and the danger's real." "I will." Prella stood to leave, then paused. "Ray, the corporations wanted to replace Boss. But the consortium itself has taken a different position. They are building a new division. Extreme environment biology. They want to study Earth methods and partner with more humans like you. As long as they respect the animals. They will. Because Boss taught them something they needed to learn." Prella looked at him seriously. "That impossible is just a word. And Earth does not care about words." After she left, Ray lay in the medical bed and listened to the ship's engines. Somewhere in another bay, Boss was recovering too. They'd both taken hits they might not fully heal from, but they were alive, still fighting. The galaxy had called this planet impossible, called the jungle impossible, called everything impossible until someone showed them different. Ray smiled despite the pain. Let them keep calling things impossible. He and Boss were just getting started. 6 months after Ash 7, Ray stood in a teaching facility on Consortium Station 9, watching a room full of humans and aliens try to understand each other. The humans had brought their partners, dolphins and specialized tanks, birds of prey on perches. A woman from Australia had brought a saltwater crocodile that made the alien security team very nervous. Boss sat at Ray's feet, mostly healed from her injuries, but with new scars to add to her collection. She was wearing a small vest that read "Instructor" in 3 languages. She'd already tried to bite 2 people who got too close, which Ray considered good progress. Last month, she would have bitten 4. Prella stood at the front of the room with a hollow display showing footage from Verdice 9 and Ash 7. The key principle is partnership, not control. Earth animals evolved in extreme conditions. They have natural adaptations we can use. A tall alien with green skin raised a hand. But how do we ensure they obey commands in dangerous situations? You don't, Ray said. You trust them to do what they're built to do. My job isn't to control Boss. It's to point her at problems and support her when things go wrong. Boss chose that moment to get bored and wander over to investigate the crocodile. The Australian handler, a weathered woman named Sarah, just smiled and let them size each other up. After a minute of mutual respect and subtle threat displays, both animals returned to their spots. See that? Ray pointed. Boss knows she could probably take the crocodile in a fight, but it would cost her. The croc knows the same thing. They worked it out without me saying a word. That's the kind of intelligence you're working with. The next 3 hours covered basic principles. Understanding animal behavior, reading stress signals, knowing when to intervene and when to let the animal work. The aliens asked good questions, and the humans shared stories about their partners. After the class, Commander Roth approached Ray. The consortium has another proposal. Another death world, an entire system. For planets, all abandoned because of extreme conditions. We want to send teams to evaluate them simultaneously. Different environments, different challenges. Ray looked down at Boss, who was currently trying to dig through the facility's floor for reasons only she understood. Boss and I will take one, but we pick which one. Agreed. Roth pulled up a hollow display showing 4 planets. One was covered in ice. Another was mostly ocean with massive storms. The third was a desert with temperatures that melted metal. The fourth was shrouded in toxic clouds. Boss barked at the desert planet. Desert it is, Ray said. Roth looked confused. You are letting her choose. She's got good instincts. Besides, I hate cold weather and she can't swim. Sarah walked over with her crocodile partner following. I'll take the ocean world. Storm's going to love this. The crocodile, apparently named Storm, made a deep rumbling sound that seemed like agreement. One by one, the other handlers picked their planets. The woman with the octopus chose the toxic clouds. A man from Alaska with a polar bear took the ice world. Within an hour, all 4 teams were assigned. This is unprecedented, Prellis said to Ray later as they prepared equipment. Coordinated multi-planet extreme environment operations using Earth biology. If this succeeds, it will change how the galaxy approaches exploration. And if it fails, then many people will say I told you so, and the consortium will return to conventional methods. Ray sealed a crate of supplies and marked it for the desert world. No pressure then. Boss had found his packed bag and was sitting on it, claiming it as her territory. Ray tried to move her and got a warning growl for his trouble. Still as charming as ever, Preller observed. She's earned the right to be difficult. Ray gave up on the bag and started packing a different one. Saved my life more times than I can count, and nearly died doing it. Ray paused. The memory of Boss lying broken on ash, 7 still gave him nightmares. Yeah, but she lived. We both did. That's what matters. Prella's expression softened. The doctors told me your radiation exposure should have killed you. They cannot explain why you survived. Stubbornness. Learned it from her. Ray nodded at Boss, who had fallen asleep on his bag. You don't survive impossible situations by giving up. You survive by being too mean and too stubborn to die. The next day, Ray and Boss boarded a ship bound for the desert world. The other teams launched for their destinations at the same time. The consortium was broadcasting everything, turning the missions into a galaxy-wide demonstration of human methods. The desert planet was called Scorch. Original name, Ray thought. The surface temperature averaged 200 degrees in the shade. There was no shade. Previous expeditions had lost equipment to heat damage before even landing. Boss seemed unbothered by the heat data. She'd spent the trip destroying her cushion, fighting with the ship's cleaning robot, and generally being herself. The crew had learned to give her space. Landing in 5 minutes, the pilot announced. Ray checked his heat-resistant suit one last time. Boss wore a special cooling vest he designed with consortium engineers. She hated it, but tolerated the discomfort because she trusted him. They touched down on a flat plain of red sand that stretched to the horizon. Heat waves made the air shimmer like water. Ray's suit immediately started working overtime to keep him cool. Boss bounded out of the ship and hit the sand running. The cooling vest was doing its job, keeping her core temperature stable. She started digging immediately, looking for anything that might be hiding under the surface. Ray followed with a scanner. The element deposits were here, buried deep where the heat was even worse. They had 2 weeks to map a safe extraction route. Boss found the first sign of life within an hour. Burrows in the sand that led to underground tunnels where the temperature was slightly lower. Creatures lived down there, things adapted to the heat. Ray documented everything while Boss investigated with her usual fearless curiosity. Days blurred together. Boss would scout ahead while Ray mapped and collected samples. At night, they'd shelter in a climate-controlled tent and Boss would curl up next to him, too tired to even destroy anything. On day 9, Boss found the main deposit. A cavern system 50 feet below the surface where massive veins of the rare element ran through cooling rock. It was hot, but survivable with proper equipment. Ray sent the data back to the consortium. Mission successful. Safe route mapped. Extraction can begin. Prella's voice came back full of excitement. The other teams are reporting similar success. The ocean world, the ice world, the toxic planet. All of them found ways through using their Earth partners. Ray smiled inside his helmet. Told you it would work. There is already talk of expanding the program. 100 death worlds are being reconsidered for exploration. Boss emerged from the cavern, carrying something in her mouth. A piece of crystal that glowed with internal heat. She dropped it at Ray's feet like a trophy and barked once, proud of herself. Good girl, Ray said, meaning it more than usual. The trip back to the consortium station took a week. When they arrived, news crews from a dozen species wanted interviews. Ray declined most of them. Boss tried to buy a camera drone and succeeded, but one interview Ray accepted. A young human journalist who asked the right question. What do you think this means for human-alien cooperation going forward? Ray looked at Boss, who is currently terrorizing the station's maintenance staff. I think it means the galaxy's learning what we already knew. Earth's a tough planet. It builds tough survivors. We're not the strongest species or the smartest, but we've got something most aliens don't, which is we know how to partner with nature instead of trying to dominate it. We respect the things that can kill us, and sometimes we bring them along for the ride. Boss returned from her terrorizing and sat at Ray's feet, looking smug. That's a honey badger, the journalist said. They're known for being aggressive and fearless. She's known for being impossible to stop, Ray corrected. Just like her planet. Just like all of us. The journalist smiled. Is there anything Earth can't do? Ray thought about jungles and radiation and deserts. Thought about all the impossible things that became possible when someone was stubborn enough to try. Probably, he said, but we haven't found it yet. Boss yawned, showing all her teeth, then curled up for a nap. Tomorrow there would be new contracts, new death worlds, new impossible challenges. But tonight, she'd earned her rest. Ray looked out the station window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out, there were planets the galaxy had given up on. Places deemed too dangerous, too hostile, too impossible for any species to survive. He smiled. Those were exactly the kind of places Boss loved most. The galaxy had called them impossible. Earth had answered with a honey badger, and the honey badger had won.